share with you about what God has put on our hearts for Passion for the Nations. Just a brief history of how it came about. In 2008, a group of mission organizations came together for prayer and to pray about missions and world missions. And they've been doing missions prayer camps for like 5-6 years. And in 2008, they had a heart to somehow, we didn't know how, but somehow start a missions movement among the Asian American community, mainly for the college and young professional age group, but any age group that's willing to learn about missions and be mobilized, we welcome. And so originally it was 10 Chinese mission organizations that came together. We thought, man, we have really have a heart for especially the immigrant church, because the immigrant church, especially among the Asians, came in the past 30 to 40 years. Japanese church is a little different. You guys have been here forever. But for like the Chinese, Koreans, Vietnamese, they've only come for about 30, 40 years. And they come here and they have a, not they, I mean we, I'm a 1.5 generation. I was born in Taiwan. I came when I was 8 years old. And we know how hard it is to just assimilate into the American culture and try to be like everyone else. And in the journey, sometimes we lose our identity, and we just try to fit in. But I believe that God has a purpose for the Asian Americans, that God has brought us here not by accident, and He has a purpose for all of us, especially the Asian Americans, in terms of global world mission. And at first we don't see that, but 30, 40 years later, we finally see what God is doing. And so we want to give the young people, the young adults, a vision that's a big vision, a big dream that's bigger than ourselves, bigger than our own Asian American dream, chasing the success of this world. Or if we don't give them a big dream, I believe we'll just follow into the silent exodus that's been so familiar with us all. That 90 to 95% of the college students, after they leave for college, they don't come back to church. And I think part of that is because the church didn't give them a big enough dream and a vision for them to follow. And something outside is much more grand. And that's part of our heart. And from a personal experience, I came to Christ when I was about 16 years old. I was like on fire for God for like the first 3 or 4 years, and because of just serving in the church and just getting tired, don't know where to go. I was like, oh, is it just the same thing over and over? And then I went on my first missions trip in the year 2000, and then that just completely opened up my eyes for what God can do in the world, how God expresses gospel and express Himself through all different cultures. And so I went again in 2004, and in 2005, I went back to Taiwan for a year to church plant, and then I went cross-culturally to Mozambique, Africa, and then God just led me into Global Life Enrichment Center, which is a missions organization, and for the past 3 years I've been leading teams into Inner Mongolia, and that has just completely changed my life. And I promised God, I said, God, you have given me all these rich experiences, and you changed my life. And I know so many Asian American young adults that are just kind of sitting idle, not doing anything. But if you can bring them out to the mission field, at least once, I know you can turn their life around. So that's why I got the heart to just mobilize the Asian American, the young adults. And one of the visions for this conference is not just for one church, and not even one denomination, but all denominations, to use this conference to bring all the Asian American churches together so that we can do something greater for God together for the kingdom. And so, why Asian Americans? And one of the reasons is because of our bicultural identity. We're Asian and we're also American, right? We look Asian, but we kind of grew up here or moved here, so we have the American educational system plus the Asian family values. And I believe that combination makes a very powerful force, a missional force, to be sent out into the most neglected parts of the world, such as the Middle East, such as Central Asia, Southeast Asia, China, wherever it may be. to use our education. For example, I bet a lot of you have gone on missions trips doing English camps, and through those, many have come to the Lord. So in 2009, we prayed really, really hard for 200 people to show up, because, I mean, it's not a big number, but to us it was really big, because it was the first time that we ever did it. But we weren't sure. I mean, 1 month before the conference, there were only like 100 people that signed up, and we were like really worried, and we just prayed really hard. But somehow God just opened up hearts, and in the last month, 300 more people signed up for it. And so we had over 400 people come to the conference. Our first conference in 2009 was in Irvine, and just really packed the house. And what was more amazing was that people came from 85 different churches and organizations. And we were just really, wow, God, what are you doing, you know? We didn't expect this. People even flew in from Kansas and Colorado and Texas to come to the conference. I was like, how did you guys even hear about us? We're so tiny, you know? So God was really up to something. He gave us a sign, you know. People I didn't think would cared about it, and they came for a purpose. So it was a lot of work just to do the first one, and I told Mike, who was the director last year, I was like, Mike, I don't know, man, maybe we should just do this like once every 3 years or so, because this is a lot of work, you know. Unless God really opens up the door like in a real obvious way, and like have a church willing to support this like full on, well, let's just do it every other 3 years, you know. And so then the divine appointment of Kay came to be about, and Kay came up to us and asked us if Evergreen would be, you know, a hosting church. And so I also just want to thank also Pastor Ron for being involved last year for the workshop. Pastor Ron did a great workshop, and also Pastor Kyle will be teaching a workshop on evangelism this year. So we're just really glad that Evergreen is behind this, and that really is an encouragement to our team that God is really behind this, you know. And last year it was predominantly a Chinese. It took place at a Chinese church, and this year Evergreen is predominantly a Japanese church. No, not predominantly. Majority?
No, majority is Chinese.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And Andy Pierce is going to do a workshop here,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And our hearts is not just the yellow skinned Asian American, but also American Asians, such as yourself. Last summer, I led a team of 7 people out to Inner Mongolia for a short-term mission trip. Only when I came back, I found out that all of them went to Passion for the Nations. And I was like, wow, you guys were really encouraged to go. And they're like, yeah, you know, they really enjoyed the event, and was one of the reasons that they went on the trip. And so I was just like really amazed on what God was doing. So our vision for the next 5 years, we hope to be hosted by Chinese churches, Korean churches, Japanese churches, Filipino churches, Vietnamese churches, and just as many Asian type of churches as we can. I mean, even Indian churches, to make it really a Asian American movement. And we're praying for 1,000 people to participate every year, and it will take place in LA and Orange County and San Diego, and maybe, who knows, if the Lord opens the door in the future, it might even go further, maybe the East Coast. Our general director, she sees like 10 years farther than anyone else. She's like, hey, why don't you do a Passion for a Nation in Europe? I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Because we have mission fields in Europe, you know. And that's why she said, yeah, it would be great to do one for the young people there. I'm like, that's a lot just to do it in LA.
Are everywhere.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't even know where Passion for the Nations is going to be 5 years from now. I just know that God's hand is in it, and it's going to go far. And so I really just appreciate Evergreen, the Evergreen staff and pastors to make this possible.